Good morning, y'all, and happy fall. I could not be more excited that it is a crisp 63 degrees outside. I've been waiting for this kind of cooler fall weather to film a little fall book reading vlog. I apologize for the lighting. The sun is not entirely in my favor, but I cannot not be outside right now. But I will say I have a very ambitious fall TBR, so we're going to try and get through as many of them as we can this fall season. The first one being one that I've been wanting to read for a while, and I am nearly done with it, and it is The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. Last year, I read The 7-Year Slip by her and fell in love with that book. Still to this day, it is one of my top 3 favorite books of all time that I've ever read. I was listening to the audiobook of this earlier, and I have 34 pages left, which is not bad at all. So in this book, we follow Florence Day, which is a ghostwriter, which I think is a very unique concept, not one that I hear about very often. And basically, she goes through a really horrific breakup, and the reasoning behind that is, yeah, I wouldn't be happy either. And basically following that breakup, she believes that romance is dead. And then this isn't a spoiler because it says it on the back of the book, but she receives a very sad phone call that someone in her family passed away, and her family owns a business, which is a funeral parlor. So she goes through different stages of grief and also has an encounter with a ghost who just happens to show up at the funeral parlor, which I think is just a fun little spin. And we just got to a pretty big reveal and a little bit of a plot twist because I was so curious how the relationship between her and the ghost Ben was going to kind of play out, being as she is living and he is obviously dead. Okay, enough yapping. I'll give you my final thoughts once I finish this book. I finished The Dead Romantics. I will say right off the bat, it did not give me the same 5-star feeling that I got in 7-Year Slip, but I think for me, this is a solid 4-star read. I really enjoyed it. It is absolutely perfect for this time of year and the season and weather, and taking place between New York and West Virginia? South Carolina? What was it? But I really fell for the characters more than I thought I would for some reason. And even though this is a romance and that is the genre that I read the most of, I feel like this was a little bit out of my comfort zone because I've never read about a topic of like ghosts like that. But the way that this book wrapped up was so sweet and heartwarming, and I thought it was so funny how just like little things tied up at the end. But I'm really glad I got to add this to my shelf and I finally finished it. It was a really good read. So something that I forgot to mention in the beginning of this video is that I want to read a variety of different books. So I finished a romance. I definitely think that I will be reading another romance. I guess we'll see on that. And I might just dabble into some fantasy, which I've never done before. So that should be interesting. Okay, and now as you can see, I have my book cart here. And for the most part, all of these books that are on the top here are pretty much romances. So I think I'm gonna stray away from those for at least a little bit. But then down here, there's a book that I got, I think around summertime, that I've been waiting to read until fall time, because if you look at the cover, it just is screaming fall. And it is The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. Just look at this magnificent cover. It might be one of my favorites that I own. And the genre of this is like magical realism, but I looked it up and it's borderline fantasy. So maybe this will be good to like get me into fantasy. I'm also very excited to start this because it is only 278 pages. But at the same time, the text is also extremely tiny. So I'm excited. I also just got in the audiobook for this, so I'll probably be listening to it in the car on my drive to and from school. So I have a feeling I'm going to fly through this book. So I am an absolute terrible vlogger. I meant to do updates on the Wishing Game and I never did. I was actually going to this morning when I was at school, but I got carried away in talking, so that never happened. So here we are. If you couldn't already tell, I finished the Wishing Game and this will be in my September reading wrap up. I'm filming this video right at the end of September into October, so some of these videos will be a little overlapping, but this book had me hooked from the very beginning. But I have one little complaint before I get into my real thoughts on this book. When I looked up the genre of this, it said that it was magical realism and partially fantasy, which for me is extremely confusing because this book mainly focuses on wishes and like full circle moments, if that makes sense. And there's not really any magic at all in this. It's just like it feels magical. It's not that there is magic, but it has that atmospheric feeling. But let me tell you, I fell in love with each and every character in this book, except for Sean. No, not him. But Christopher is just the cutest, sweetest kid. Like the things that comes out of his mouth is so adorable. And like he's just a little 7-year-old and he just wants to have a happy life and he just wants Lucy to be his mom. And it's just so sweet. I don't think I've ever read about a sweeter kid than this. But I really enjoyed a lot of aspects of this book and especially the writing. It does make me curious what other books Meg Schaefer has out. She has The Wishing Game, The Lost Story, and Grandpa's Great RV Adventure. It seems like this was her debut novel too, which is insane because it was so good. I want to say it's 5-star worthy, but again, I didn't really see any magical realism in it. So I think it's a 4.75 for me, which is still incredibly high. And I still would highly recommend this to anybody who's looking for a good atmospheric fall read. And it was just so fun to read about all the characters and their background and their development. So I highly recommend this if you're looking for a good fall book, and it's super short and sweet. So that was very nice. Now it's time to pick my next book. And I think I know which book I'm going to read. And I'm a little nervous, not gonna lie. I think it is time that I read my first ever fantasy book. I'm going to read The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. Oh, I'm scared. Jude was 7 when her parents were murdered and she and her 2 sisters were stolen away to live in the treacherous High Court of Fairy. 10 years later, Jude wants nothing more to belong there, but many of the Fae despise humans, especially Prince Cardan, the youngest and wickedest son of the High King. To win a place at the court, Jude must defy him and face the consequences. Do I start it now? I'm afraid I'm going to feel stupid. I'm not going to understand. But at the same time, I can't film a fall reading vlog without a fantasy book. And honestly, I might go outside to read for a little bit because it is so nice outside. It's currently 76, which is actually warmer than I thought it was going to be. All right, I'm going to start The Cruel Prince. Wish me luck. Chapter 1 made me laugh. Okay, the lighting is a bit weird and hopefully it's not too windy for my mics out here, but I am now on chapter 3, so I'm not too far into it yet. But I gotta say, the first little bit of the book, the prologue, was pretty brutal, but I am happy to report that I'm understanding it more than I thought I was going to be. It's not that it's confusing, it's just different writing from what I'm used to, so I think it will take me a little bit to fully get into it. But so far, we are just kind of meeting the characters. We find out that 10 years ago, this guy named Maddox took the 3 girls from a human world into fairyland. And right now they are headed to court, which I guess we're gonna find out more about hopefully shortly. But I'm very excited to see where this goes and what I think of it. Alrighty, y'all, it is now a few days later. I really haven't had too much time to read because this week has been extremely stressful and extremely long. But I am now currently in school. If it looks a little weird, I'm in a little, like, silent room, I guess. But on my way over here, I decided to actually switch to the audiobook version just because I wanted to know what happens next because I left off at quite the cliffhanger. I am now in, like, part 2 of the book, and I pretty much have exactly 3 hours left, which it's pretty ironic. But I'm really enjoying it so far. Like, I feel like the entire book we've been leading up to the High King basically retiring and then leaving it to one of his sons. And we just got to that part and it was, pretty interesting. Of course, majority of the time in a fantasy book, nothing ever goes to plan. But I think I'm gonna finish it tomorrow. But I think the more that I'm getting into the book, I think I'm liking it more and more and getting used to the writing style. And there was also another little plot twist that was revealed, so I'm very curious to see how that plays into everything else. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil anything, but I'm really enjoying it so far. I finished it! Oh my god, I finished my first fantasy book. I'm so excited we're here. To be honest, I think I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to. I'm definitely excited to get straight into the other books in the series. I do own what is it called? The Wicked King. So I'll hopefully have to get to that soon. I think my rating on it is a 4.5 stars. It's not quite a 5-star feeling that I got when I finished the book, but still, I really enjoyed it. I loved these characters and getting to know them, and all of the plot twists made perfect sense for the book. And one thing I will say that I really did not expect is I was not expecting the direction that it went into. I thought it was going to take a completely different path than what it did, but I feel like it led to the perfect setup for the other 2 books. So I'm very excited to see how that plays in. I feel like for the most part, every character played a very particular role in what made this book the book. I'm tired. My explanations probably don't make any sense right now. But I can definitely see why this is a #1 New York Times bestseller. But for those who have read this book, can somebody please explain to me why there's a green beetle on the front cover and on the back right there? Because I'm trying to think and I don't think I can recall why there's a beetle. I have a little idea, but I don't remember a greenish, bluish beetle. So if somebody can help me out, that would be really great. I did it, y'all. I finished my first fantasy book. Only now I need to get to the other 2. Alrighty, so it's been a little bit since I've updated you guys last. This last week has been absolutely nuts. So I haven't had too much time to read, but I did actually start a new book. So I started You Again by Kate Goldbeck, and I figured I couldn't not read this book in this video because this is like the most fall cover I think I've ever seen. And so I had to pick it up. It's just such a stunning cover. And I'm on page 132, and I gotta say, I think the cover tricked me. I'm really not liking this book. It's not for me. I am not a fan of the writing. To be honest, I don't really feel like there's a plot either. From chapter 1 to chapter 2, we go 3 years later, and then chapter 2 to chapter 3 is another 2 years later. So that's a 5-year gap in between like 50 pages. And then again, from 3 to 4 is another 3-year gap. That's 8 years in 76 pages. I feel like it's just our 2 main characters meeting up in like the most random ways that don't even really make sense to the plot. And they just keep meeting after these few years in between. And I know this is a romance, so obviously they're gonna end up together, but I don't see them connecting in any way. I'm not enjoying it at all, which is so sad. Maybe it'll change, maybe we'll actually get some sort of plot line, but I will say that the audiobook version of this did arrive for me on Libby, so I'm 33% of the way through. I find it really hard for me to DNF a book, but I truly think the only way that I'm gonna get through this book is if I audiobook it. So that's what I've been doing for the last few chapters, because it's just not, the writing style isn't my favorite. The characters are very unlikable. I read a lot of reviews saying that exact comment, and I understand it. Unfortunately, I do. Can they stop hating each other long enough to fall in love? At this point, I'm gonna have to say no. We'll see. I'll keep you guys updated, but it's not the book I wanted to end this video off on. Alrighty y'all, so it is now the next day. We're going to ignore the background. I just got off of work or home from work. I'm very tired and I have not yet done anything. But I have listened to quite a bit of the audiobook of You Again. I am now on page 317 out of 410, which 410 is a little lengthy, must say, for a romance. I really don't like DNFing books because I feel like I paid for it. I gotta give it a chance. Maybe I'll grow to like it, but I just, you know, I could just look up what happens and I could probably predict what happens, but because here's the thing. Basically everything about this book, it is just not for me. I really don't want to talk negatively about anybody's book because to write a book, kudos to you because that is an incredible feat that hopefully, maybe I will do in my lifetime, but to be able to do that is incredible. However, I just think this one in particular is just not for me. And honestly, I think I'm just gonna skim the next 100 pages because I don't think that I can put myself through listening to any more of the book, and I most definitely will not be sitting down and reading whatever's left of it. So I think I'm just gonna skim. It's just not worth it to me and my time to sit down and read it. So I'm just gonna skim. I'll read like the last chapter. I finished it. I'm so sad. I really truly wanted to love this book. I really did. And it's so crazy because this book is both probably one of the most beautiful covers that I own, but also probably one, if not the worst book I've ever read, in my opinion. I really don't even want to give it a star. It's not for me, and that's a-okay. I am glad to be done with it. I definitely think that I have better books ahead of me. We did it. Yeah. Alright, well, not the most positive note to end off this video on. I apologize for that. Definitely got some more books crossed off my TBR, which is always such a good feeling. And also just like a lot of like atmospheric reads for fall is just so amazing because now like all the leaves are changing colors by me and it's just so beautiful and such nice weather too. So stay tuned for more kind of fallish content coming soon. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm trying so very hard to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of this year. I really think we could do it, but I need your guys' help for it, so don't forget to subscribe. I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.